All right, let's talk a little bit about velocity settings on the K2700. I've noticed, especially when playing piano, that I really have to lay into the keys hard to get some of the top end brightness to come out. And I don't know about you, but when I do that, especially live, I just play like crap. I end up just slamming everything so I can be heard, because oftentimes it's that top end, especially in a rock band, that's going to cut through. I've gone through and created a custom calibration, so I want to walk you through the process of doing that and some other kind of neat tricks. The patch I'm using here is what I call clean piano, so it's just one of the factory pianos, and I've removed a bunch of the FX blocks that I didn't really need. So it sounds to me just a little bit more straightforward and less of some of the fluff that's in there. I've added some reverb, so it sounds basic like this. That's pretty light playing there up here. So pretty light. Um, so if we go in and take a look at how I've got the velocity curve set up, I'm using the light 3 curve. So if I were to play the same thing on light 1, so you can see it's darker because it's not really getting as much of those upper velocity layers. So you can hear some more of that brightness there. And if I go to piano touch, it's even darker. I'm playing all those at roughly the same velocity. I could use a MIDI file to get it exact, but you get the point. So even with light 3, I really found that I have to, pound it to get those top, the sort of top velocities to play. And it's not very good when I'm trying to perform live, and I'm really just focusing on slamming it as hard as I can. So what I've noticed here is if you go down to the key velocity map, there is a factory calibration, and there's something called 1 flat. But you can create your own velocity map, and you can actually change the velocity settings of every key differently. So you could, I don't know how practical that is, but you could have the lower register respond one way and the upper register respond a different way if that's what you want. I just went ahead and made a change to the calibration settings. I made my own, and I just increased them all a bit. So if you click, you actually just have to click edit, and you can see now all of the keys are mapped out here. And you can see if you arrow down, you can go ahead and change for this particular key. Let's say I want it to respond to a lighter touch, but to bring out more of those upper velocity layers. I can increase that, I think, up to 50, yeah. And I can go down to 100 if I really want it to be dark. And then you can go ahead and save and name it and so forth. So let's take a look at the one I created here. I'm going to exit that without saving. I do not want to save it. So I'm going to go to this custom one that I created. And if I edit it, you can see I just raised every key by a value of 22. So let's go ahead and exit. And with the light 3 velocity map setting and factory calibration, we heard this. Now if I go to the one I created, get a little bit more of that upper end. So let's go back to that little Bruce Hornsby bit in the upper keys, and you can kind of hear. So that's standard. And then if I go to my custom, roughly the same velocity. So obviously, I don't have to play nearly as hard to get that super bright sound, which is great. It's a little bit much, so I also have the option of working with these together and saying, all right, let's go down to light 1. So you can see the sound. I could even go with piano touch, and it would sound better than before, I think. For the stuff I've been doing where I really want it to be bright, I've been keeping it on light and custom. Let's do this though. There's another little trick. Another way to approach this. So I'm going to go ahead and set this back to factory. Exit there. I'm going to go to multi here. And you can see, actually I'm going to see if I can change this, but let's just get it to one of the default pianos. So this is, again, that default factory calibration with the light setting. So still not super bright. But there's a nice little trick here if I just want to approach it at a patch by patch level in a multi, instead of changing the whole calibration of the instrument. I can go to, the main page for this particular layer in the multi, and you can see there's a velocity offset. I've actually already got this one up a little bit, so I lied when I said it was factory. So this is normal, and then if I really want to, just for this particular patch, bring just the offset up here, you can see it's starting to get brighter. So that's kind of a neat little trick, but let's bring this down to 0, and there's something else that I like to do, especially in a live setting where I may want to have it just brighten if I'm really hitting it hard up top. So for that kind of, so if I'm playing something a little more subtle down below, and then later in the song it really opens up and I want to be heard over the guitars, I'm going to go back to overview. You can see I've got a second patch here in the multi, and that's the KW piano bright. And if I activate that, a little bit of chorusing going on, but see, now what I did here is, if you go to, again, the main page, and we'll go to the zone, or this layer in the multi, I've actually got the velocity curve set to expand. So what that means is the harder I play, there's sort of like an exponential curve, the brighter it gets, the sort of more velocity you're getting. So if I were just to keep this activated and play, the idea is I can play something low down here and have it sort of relatively easy, and it's not going to trigger that second patch that I added. So see that? If I hit it just a little bit harder, it brings in that second one. So it's not quite like just setting a low and high velocity setting. It's actually an exponential curve. So the harder I play, the more it's going to bring in. I know it sounds kind of odd to describe it, but you have to kind of play it to feel it. So this is kind of a nice little trick. If I'm just want to, so this song by The Who, Getting in Tune, I kind of want it to be a little more subtle when I'm playing with just, myself and the vocalist. And then I might really want to, when the band comes in, I want everyone to hear my top end a little more. So then I'm going. So that, if I didn't have that second layer there, you'd just be hearing. So that doesn't really cut it. But I also don't want that layer to be in there all the time. So it's kind of a nice little trick to be able to do it that way. So a few different options that I've found that kind of help me bring out some of that extra sort of velocity layering without having to really pound on the keyboard. So hopefully that was helpful.